It's that time again, you guys. A late night solo podcast because I haven't done one in a minute. If you don't know, these are the podcasts that I do all by my lonesome, usually at around 2 a.m. when I'm just delirious enough to be too introspective. Though if you ask my friends, they'd probably tell you that I say weird, overly thoughtful stuff just as much at 2 p.m., so that's neither here nor there. Either way, it's late, and I'm going to go through some questions that you guys have sent me, and then I'm sure somewhere in the midst of that, I'll end up going off on some sort of tangent, because that's life. So let's get into the questions, shall we? First up, someone in my podcast reviews on iTunes asked me to review some of the bars that I hit up in the PB area of San Diego. He also mentioned that he'd like to hear more male perspective about the online dating life after listening to the podcast where me and my friend Michelle did a live Bumble swiping session. And hey, I hear you, sir. Maybe I'll do a live Bumble swipe with a guy next time, and we'll compare notes. That's very doable. So thanks for the feedback, and thanks very much for listening. Now, as far as the PB bars go, the first thing we've got to remember here is that I am 31 years old. So it changes the way I go out in that particular area. I struggle to be out there past 10 because I start to feel a little bit out of place when all of the 21-year-olds come in, you know. We actually went out to Backyard a while ago, and we're having a great time, enjoying some tacos on a Tuesday and some tequila beverages. But then 10 p.m. came around, and just the swarms of younger people came in, and I kid you not, they all seemed to fully black out by 10:45. It was insanity. Like, all of a sudden, we're trying to navigate through a sea of 6'4", 22-year-olds, and, you know, it just gets overwhelming. And they're all so tall. I don't know why they're all so tall. That's just a strange anomaly that I've noticed lately. So, I mean, I'm a fan of being out in the bar scene in that area, but more during the day to kind of the early-ish night, because it's just, I think you get the best of both worlds that way. I still really like Backyard, though. Usually when I go out at this point, I'm looking for good music or good atmosphere, especially. And then I want well-made drinks and food rather than kind of a sloppy drunk situation at this point. No offense to people who are occasionally sloppy drunk, because I have most certainly been you before. But, you know, I mean, if you're going to choose which types of environments you want to be in, those aren't necessarily my favorite anymore. I am a big fan of Tower 23. It's got a really great location on the beach, and it's perfect for when you're in more of a lounge mood and you're looking for good food. The Grass Skirt was cool. It's a tiki bar that you should check out if you're kind of in a smaller group and you like really exotic cocktails. The drinks are a little bit pricey, but the bar comes alive literally every once in a while, which is pretty neat. And my drink showed up on fire. And I do also mean that literally. I think it was called the Lava and Ice. I think that's right. Something like that. I don't know how I remember that. That's weird. I've had a lot of memorable nights at Tavern. That's for sure. Firehouse is great. We end up at the Local from time to time. I'm actually pretty excited to see what's up with the two newer bars that are in the area. The one that's under construction next to Backyard that used to be PB Bar and Grill, and the one that's next to Shore Club called Water Bar, which I believe just recently opened. So I'll have to check those out for sure. I'll tell you that two of my favorite places to eat are in PB, and those would be Enoteca Adriano, which is an amazing Italian restaurant on Cass Street, and Costa Brava, which is a Spanish tapas restaurant that's right on Garnett. They're both incredible, and I've never been disappointed with my food or experience ever. I think what makes a place one of my favorite places to go, whether it's, you know, bars or restaurants, it's really just about the consistency. And I always know that whatever I get is going to be amazing. Next up, I got this question on Instagram. With your screenwriting and blog writing experience, have you ever considered writing for video games? And what other facets of media are you interested in? Dude, yes. I've always said that writing for video games would combine two of my loves, and I definitely keep my eyes open for those kinds of opportunities. I mean, like if I were to ever be a part of something that was as well written and designed as The Last of Us, for example, oh my God, I'd faint. I'm obsessed with that game. A couple games that I'm really excited for coming up too. Ni no Kuni 2. Yes, I super nerded out on the first one that came out for the PS3. Last of Us 2, which is coming out in forever from now, but I'm super excited because it's my favorite game of all time, pretty much. Days Gone, A Way Out, Death Stranding, which looks amazing. I still haven't played Zelda Breath of the Wild, but I have a Switch now, so I need to get on it. As if that weren't enough, as if all of that weren't enough, besides all the other games I want to play, I just realized that Fallout 4 is available on VR. Like, I just want to wander that post-apocalyptic wasteland, And you hang out with dog meat and, like, do some side quests. It's like there's never going to be enough time or money to keep up with all the amazing games that are being released, but I can't help but slowly try. As far as branching out a bit, I've just recently started up a Twitch channel to add in my love of gaming and to give myself even more of an excuse to play them for hours. So hopefully I get myself on a regular schedule for that coming up in the next couple weeks as my real life schedule normalizes. So you can check that out if you're into it. Courtney Diamond is the channel. Surprise, surprise. As far as creative writing goes, it actually just used to be exclusively what I wrote. I was always writing things that were fiction and creating worlds and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that I can work my way towards exploring that part of myself again this upcoming year. Here's one thing I've noticed. I took a couple weeks off of drinking before Christmas, and my resistance to sitting down and writing just skyrocketed. I was so resistant to it. Right now, a bunch of people are like, oh, you took 2 weeks off? I can do that for months and years. I don't drink anymore, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, I could do that too. And if you are fully sober, then that is also beautiful. But I like a nice glass of whiskey or red wine here and there. And I realized that it's kind of part of my creative process at the moment, at least. It's like having that glass of wine. I have a glass of wine and then usually a glass of coffee, a cup of coffee when I'm writing, because it's just enough to keep me alert and yet quiet down the judgment that happens in the back of my mind while I'm just trying to get words on the page, So it's actually just something that seems to help me combat the writer's block, quote unquote. You can't go over 2 glasses, though, for anybody who wants to try that, because then your brain's going to get all fuzzy. Next question. Have you thought about adding video to the podcast? Hey, I sure have. I've been considering the idea of moving into that, even if it just begins with recording these solo ones. If that's something that you would be interested in seeing, feel free to let me know, because I'm kind of on the edge with that one right now. On to the next. What have you learned so far by doing your podcast? I've learned that pretty much everyone is nervous about how their voice sounds at first, or whether they'll have interesting things to say. I've noticed that everyone is judgmental of themselves directly after recording, including myself. I've learned that everyone has something interesting to talk about, and also I've become more aware of what it takes to navigate a conversation. You're always balancing trying to find the places where you can go deeper into a topic, or whether it's time to just be quiet and listen, or whether it's time to keep it moving forward. I try to always be aware of the other person's comfort level and to think about what I can do to help them relax if they're a little bit nervous, because the key thing to aim for is to be as real and honest as you can, despite being recorded, because I think that's what people want to hear. It's certainly what I like to hear when I'm listening to podcasts. So naturally, you're more aware of your speech and you place a kind of a higher level of expectation on yourself, but it's just a part of it all. And it gets easier. The valuable thing about podcasts is that you get to eavesdrop in on two people, or more in some cases, and get lost in it yourself. You can kind of get an idea of who they are, especially the more you continue to listen to the same ones over and over again as you begin to follow people on other podcasts. And you learn a lot, whether it's like intellectual learning and you're learning about subjects, or if you're just learning about how other people think. Here's a good follow-up question to that. What podcasts do I listen to? Let's see. I listen to the Joe Rogan Experience, the Tim Ferriss Show, Under the Skin with Russell Brand, the Aubrey Marcus podcast, the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, Waking Up with Sam Harris, This Past Weekend with Theo Vaughn. Those are the ones I listen to the most heavily. Oh, and I also listen to mine a lot because I do all the editing for it. So I have to. Next question is, what do you think of the motivational/social influencer people? Is that something you want to do or are trying to do? Okay, so here's the thing. No, I don't think that's really where my head's at. I think my focus is on sharing my experiences and sharing the changes and thought processes that I've tried to implement over the last several years so that, one, I can fully ingrain them in myself, and two, so that maybe someone else hears it and they can relate or look into the same things that I've looked into, because if I'm so excited about it, I really enjoy just sharing with other people what I'm into. But it's like when you think about it, the whole motivation movement is not necessarily based on unique messages, right? Like these messages and philosophies, if you will, are not new. They've been around since the early Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, to Buddhists and Taoists and the Greeks and Socrates, etc., right? A lot of these ideas are not new, but now they have the opportunity to spread at an even larger scale because so many different people have adopted the core of those messages and are either presenting them in their rawest form or have added some modern tweaks to create updated processes for current society to make those ancient ideas for us now. And the important thing is these ideas need different storytellers, different voices, different humors, because the way one person communicated may not have resonated with you. But then someone else says it, and for some reason you like them better, for whatever reason. Their humor, their writing style, their looks, let's not be naive here, or you're just able to relate to them more for whatever reason, and something clicks. That's a voice that speaks to you. I think where it gets tricky is when people aren't being real about it, and they just want followers and are kind of just hopping on the trend. And trends kind of mess things up, huh? You know what another one is? Being spiritual. Like that idea got laid on so thick that sometimes, a lot of times, it's treated like a joke now. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, right? And some people most definitely abuse that, so it's understandable that it's taken on that tone, but it's also kind of a bummer because it shouldn't be considered a negative description. And speaking of sounding spiritual, energy has been on my mind a lot lately. Mostly that I've felt like I don't have enough of it. I fell kind of into that place where I was like, it seemed like I had enough hours, but I didn't really have the energy to put into doing certain things I wanted to get done. And some of it's in my head, and some of that comes from slipping out of helpful routines because of changes in my schedule. But I was walking up the stairs at work the other week. And I mean, like, walking is a bad word for it. Like, trudging is more accurate. And this coworker of mine, who is always in the best of moods, he's originally from another country, and he just exudes gratitude all day long, like legit real gratitude, okay? And he comes up to me and he says, "What's wrong? You don't look like yourself." And that's completely fair play because I'm sure everything in my movement was screaming, I'm tired, right? And I say, just kind of trying to play it off, oh, just a little worn out. I probably just need some coffee because I've been drinking, you guys, I've been drinking so much coffee lately. It's out of control. Anyway, he says, with all sincerity, no, you don't need coffee. All the energy you need is already inside you right now, all the time. And then he asks me, have you ever been on the phone until the middle of the night with someone that you love, talking for hours, and then you realize that you're not even a little bit tired? And I laughed because we've all been there, right? When we're excited to talk to somebody, and all of a sudden we've got more than enough energy to stay up all night. And you do find this like endless stream of energy, it feels like. So he was just completely right. And I really needed to hear that in that moment. We really just kind of find the energy when we're trying to tap into it. And when we're excited about what we're doing, we're just going to feel a little bit more alive. I really needed that in that moment. And I think that's always really cool when that's something you need to hear really does appear for you. And it's the same concepts that are talked about in like the untethered soul. The untethered soul describes us as being in two states. Like we're either open or we're closed. And to stay open, we simply decide that nothing is worth closing over. And that decision gives us access to a never-ending stream of energy. It's like some serious stuff, right? So anyway, it's stuff I'm reading about, but it's nice to see it when you're like autopiloting through your day, when you get that message. So that was really cool. I love that. I don't even know what the question was, you guys. I just went off. See, I told you I was going to do it. I told you I was going to tangent at some point here. So anyway, that was just a cool encounter this week. That reminded me that I have more energy than I think. And you probably do too. So how about that? Somebody said, what music do I listen to? I'm all over the place. I like, pop, hip hop, electronic, jazz, for sure. I'm a big fan of Seal, Daft Punk. But more specifically, how about this? I'll tell you a couple songs that I'm obsessed with right now. So I'm one of those people that gets obsessed with 3 or 4 songs at a time and then listens to them on repeat until they're permanently ingrained in my being, right? And my neighbors probably think I'm insane, but I can't help myself. So the first song I've been listening to on loop is Feel It Still by Portugal the Man, but it's the Lido remix. I also listened to the original, so that should count as 2, but I'm calling it 1. They're both amazing. Second, I'm listening to Machine Gun Kelly's song The Breakup. It's just so, I don't know, it feels so real. And have I been through a breakup recently? Not even slightly. But damn, if that song doesn't just resonate with me for some reason. So next up, somebody said, can you suggest some stuff to watch on Netflix? Yes, I can. Black Mirror season 4 just came out, and I've already binged it. Like, oh my God. That's one of my favorite shows. It's one of my favorite shows on there. It's so amazing. Episode 4 spoke to me on so many levels. I was speechless after it was over. I loved the first episode of the season 2. Honestly, all of them have their amazing points in this new season. Some of my favorite other episodes of it are the San Junipero episode, the one where people are starting to get ratings on social media, and you have a rating that everybody can see all day long. And now that's actually happening in real life in like China or something. Is that the right thing? It's getting late. Is that the right country? Probably. But anyway, that's becoming a real thing. And that's the most amazing thing about that show is you watch it, and every single episode, you can actually imagine that those things would happen. You've got to give it a shot if you haven't watched it. I'm so intrigued with anything to do with the future and what kind of mess we are going to get ourselves into. And that's exactly what you'll think every time you watch one of those episodes. So Black Mirror is something you should watch on Netflix for sure. Also, I would highly suggest, if you're into documentaries, Reggie Yates' Outside Man. It's a series that highlights kind of all kinds of current social issues, and he goes in and talks to people on all sides of the issue to get an idea of what's really happening on the ground level. He takes it all over the world. He's in like Russia and South Africa, Australia, the UK, US, probably more. It's really great. and it's well worth watching next time you're looking for something new to check out. So, I don't know, last subject here, you guys. It's almost a new year, or maybe it's after the new year as you're listening. If so, Happy New Year. I've come to realize that I like to reflect more than I like to resolve when it comes to this time of year. I like to reflect on what I've accomplished and how I've changed, and what I like about what I did during the year and what I'd like to minimize going forward. I went back and I read what I wrote last year on this day, and really my immediate reaction was, wow, I still feel exactly the same way. And that's a good thing, because it means that the more positive mindset that I've been trying to create for myself has a firmer hold on me. And I just want to keep it up and probably step it up too. Push myself to create more, to get more traveling under my belt, all that good stuff. So just to continue, I'm pretty reasonable at jotting things down all year, which is what we should all do. We don't need January 1st to create that feeling of change in ourselves. It's just a useful time, I think, to stop and check in. So yeah, I think that'll do it for this one, you guys. If you want to read that post that I wrote from last year, that's pinned to the top of my website right now, so you guys can go check that out. But as a reminder, the podcast is brought to you by Audible. If you'd like to support me and my podcast endeavors, you can get yourself a free book of your choice and a free 30-day trial at audibletrial.com/Courtney Diamond, or share that with somebody else who needs a book. I would certainly appreciate it. Otherwise, if you guys want to get in touch with me, you can always find me on the socials at Courtney Diamond. CourtneyDiamond.com is the site. And contactcourtneydiamond@gmail.com is the email. Thanks for listening, you guys, and I will talk to you next time. Happy New Year.